This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hello there. Welcome to episode 149 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, as always, Kinsey Roberts. I am a wedding venue owner and educator. I'm looking forward to introducing you to Joelle Duff today. We have a really interesting conversation and not one that I've covered on the podcast before. We're talking about how Joelle re-entered the wedding industry after taking an extended leave of absence as a wedding planner to raise her family. I really enjoyed my conversation with Joelle, and I want to tell you a little bit more about her. But before I get there, I just want to send you this little reminder. As I record this on November 10th, 2019, the 2020 She Creates Content Calendar will be available. It is 365 days of marketing content planned out for you specifically for wedding professionals. You can use these content ideas on your blog, on social media, on your YouTube channel, on your own podcast. The sky's the limit. There are additional tips in there, additional resources and ideas on how to use the calendar. You can get yours on November 10th, 2019. It's going to be $127. So go ahead and just set that amount aside in your bank account. That's less than 35 cents a day next year in 2020 as I record this for a full year of a marketing plan. Marketing, it's not a strategy. No, don't get me wrong, because a strategy means you're implementing multiple things, right? But this is a marketing plan for you. You don't have to come up with the content ideas because I've already done it for you. Now, let's talk about Joelle. I loved this conversation so much, and I had a lot of questions to ask her because I hadn't covered this topic before, as I mentioned. And so there are a few times in the interview where I have talked over her. And so Joelle, I'm sorry. I was just like, oh my gosh, I have a question before I forget. I want to ask you. It was really interesting to hear someone who had a very successful business take an extended leave of absence for multiple years and then re-enter the wedding industry, and to see it from her perspective and to hear how the industry has changed from when she first started her company back in 2011. I know you're going to enjoy this. If you've been thinking of taking a break, maybe you're on a break right now, Joelle gives some really solid pieces of advice for things that she learned taking her own break and what she would do differently if she were to do it again, or if she could tell, future Joelle or past Joelle what she should do before taking this break. So before we dive in, Joelle, let me tell you a little bit about her business. Joelle has been planning events and weddings in the Santa Barbara, California area since 2011. Specializing in romantic and intimate events in one of the most beautiful parts of the country, Joelle is excited to be back to planning after taking time off to start her family. I am so much looking forward to hearing this interview. Now, Joelle, you can find her at joellecharming.com. She is a wedding planner and a lifestyle blogger, and her planning company is Occasions by Joelle Charming. So you can find everything over there. And I know she mentions these at the end of the episode too, but I wanted to give you those in case you're interested in checking her out. So without further ado, let's talk to Joelle Duff from Occasions by Joelle and joellecharming.com about what it was like for her to re-enter the wedding industry after being gone for a few years. Here we go. Joelle, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for being here. We were just offline, you guys, talking about how we're both excited, and we're like, I'm so glad you emailed. No, I'm glad you emailed. And it's because this topic, I was telling Joelle, I have not covered at all on the podcast. And as a mother myself, I think it's such a powerful topic. And Joelle, I just really appreciate you coming on to talk about this, because it's really important for us to be open about what this looks like in business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the wedding industry, I don't know the specific statistics, but most of, the people that I know that are in the industry are women and are mothers. And so, I'm constantly seeing questions about how I'm trying to plan when I get pregnant. When did you guys have your babies? How did you jump back in? And so I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of insight into my own journey and how it's been working for me.
That's going to be so good. I'm looking forward to digging in. Before we get there, I read that professional bio that I always do at the top of the show in the introduction. So everyone has a pretty good idea of where you're coming from professionally, but I'd love for you, Joelle, in your own words, to just give us a quick overview of who you are, what you're doing in the industry.
Absolutely. So I am a wedding planner in the Santa Barbara, California area. I started my business, A Charming Occasion, back in 2011, and kind of just my business blew up. I got to do so many awesome things, and the industry at the time was fantastic. I loved it so much. And so things evolved, and I decided to rebrand in 2014 under the name Joelle Charming for various reasons, mainly because I like doing lifestyle content alongside weddings and events. Mm-hmm. And then in 2016, I had my first baby. And so I had a full wedding season in 2015. And as you all know, you book pretty early. And so I was booking weddings before I knew I was pregnant that would happen after I was pregnant. I think I had Remy, who's 3.5 now, in February. And my last wedding before he was born was in October. But my first wedding back was 3 weeks after I had him. And I literally wore him in a carrier while I was setting up and everything for this wedding. My mom eventually came and she watched him, while I worked the rest of the evening, but it was really intense trying to have to go back and forth for feedings and everything. And I just realized that I needed to take some time off. Something else that kind of is about my story is when I was in the early years of my wedding planning business, my husband was in graduate school. He's a psychologist. And so I was basically putting him through school, which meant that I had to take on as many weddings as I could. I was working constantly just to keep us above water. I think people, I don't know if people think that having a small business is super profitable, but not all the time. So basically, I was taking every single wedding I could get. I was getting really burnt out. I wanted to spend time with my newborn. And so I decided that I was going to stop accepting clients. And so I finished out 2016. I only had a handful of weddings once I decided to stop accepting clients. And so for 2017 and 2018, I basically took an extended maternity leave. I did some freelance work for other planners in my area before then, or during that time. And then I got pregnant again. And so I had my youngest turned a year in January. And right before his birthday, I decided that I was ready to start taking on clients again. So I announced that I was taking clients again and decided to have 2019 be my first season back after taking 3 years off. Okay. So I'm now in the middle of my season.
Okay. So let's unpack some of this a little bit. You started your planning company back in 2011. Tell us a little bit, and you blew up, you mentioned. So tell us a little bit about how you grew your business. I mean, you're in the Santa Barbara area, so, that's a pretty, is that a pretty wealthy area in California? I would say? Okay.
Yeah. It's a very destination wedding area too.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. So tell me about how, in those 5 years from 2011 to 2016, when you were really growing your business, tell me about that. What were you doing to grow your business? What kind of weddings and events were you doing? And what did that look like for you pre-kids?
Yeah, I think that I really loved when I was able to start my business because the industry was so different. There was no Instagram and there was no Pinterest at the time. That's right. Wedding blogs were a thing. And so I remember being accepted onto one of the vendor directories for one of those wedding blogs, 6 months after I started. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever because the market wasn't oversaturated. But I was really able to network organically because we were all doing the same thing. Styled shoots were becoming more popular and they were so much fun because you really could think outside of the box and do things that hadn't been seen before. And so I did a ton of styled shoots and it was just a blast because I was working with so many amazing vendors that became some of my best friends during the time. And so the market and the industry was relatively small back then. I mean, there were still a lot of vendors around, but it was relatively small and we were a really tight-knit community. And so it was all purely vendor referral, back and forth. You could advertise a little bit, but it was really about just making those connections with other people. And that's really what I remember back in that time. And so that's really how I grew things was I just constantly was referring other people, vendors to my brides, and then it would be, reciprocated. And there was just a ton of networking. and it was a lot easier to do back then than it is now.
Which is and what a great foundation to build your business on, of course, because yes, we do have Instagram, Pinterest, all the things now, but of course, those things, sometimes cause us to pull our hair out, right? Especially
Absolutely.
with the algorithms and all of this. And so you have built this amazing foundation of relationships, which truly, no matter how many marketing channels we get in our industry and outside of the industry and what have you, no matter how many marketing opportunities we have, it all comes down to relationships, and which you already know. I mean, that's incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I got to share studios and offices with a couple people, and we put on just some really awesome industry events too. And it was just so much fun. It was really so much fun.
So did you have any associates or assistant planners helping you during that 5-year period when you were really, full-time growing your business?
Yeah, I had a couple teams, and it was, that was probably not my strength. Planning is definitely more my strength, but I definitely had to bring in different types of people. And so I had interns, production assistants, different people at various times that I, needed. But I've never really done associate planners. I prefer to do the planning myself. And it's part of the reason why I decided to rebrand into Joelle Charming versus A Charming Occasion, because I wanted people to know that they're going to be working with me specifically.
Oh, interesting. And I like that. So you would hire people, support people on different parts of the event rather than associate planners. Okay.
Yeah. And at that point in 2014, I knew that kind of the hustle of just taking as many weddings as I could was coming to an end, partially because my husband was graduating and I knew it would be a little bit more financially stable. And I just thought, I knew that my business was it was evolving into a place where I didn't need to take so many. I could do, a smaller number of higher end weddings and make a similar amount of money. And so I knew that I didn't necessarily need to bring on associate planners just to kind of bulk it up or anything. I could make it work just doing it on my own.
Okay, I like that. So fast forward, you are planning, your husband's going to graduate. He graduated in 2014, and then fast forward to 2016, and you decide to take this break. You had a wedding 3 weeks after your son was born, and then you were like, I'm going to take a break. How did you come to that decision? Was that a hard choice to make, or what did that look like for you?
It was difficult, but kind of the 2014 to 2016 years for me in general were really difficult in my business and my life. And so I just knew that something had to give. And at that point, I just wasn't even sure that I wanted to take any more weddings. I thought maybe it would be a good time to pivot into something different. I kind of stayed home with my son for the first year to see if I wanted to be, a stay-at-home mom. I am not, I am not meant to be a stay-at-home parent. And so it was a difficult decision, but it had also happened a little bit organically because I'd had my son. I wasn't actively marketing myself. I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't attending events. And so work was starting to slow down anyway. And I always said, if the perfect wedding just happened to pop into my email inbox, then absolutely I would take it. But I just never got that feeling that there was anything that was going to pull me away from my kids at this point.
Okay.
It is really, and also as a wedding planner, you're gone on the weekends for so much.
Yes.
And that was another reason why I decided, I didn't want to take on as many weddings as I had, because I wanted to just be home more.
Absolutely. And so once you made that decision to just say, nope, I'm on extended maternity leave for, from 2016 until this year, what was that 3-year leave like for you? How did you, I guess I know you rebranded, but did you, keep your business website up? What did that look like from a logistical perspective for your business?
Yeah. So I had considered starting again in 2017, and I was going to do a different kind of go under a different name. And then that didn't pan out. I'd always kept Joelle Charming up because one thing that is different is I did start out as I started out as a lifestyle blogger as well. And so during that time, I still blogged and shared content on my website. I had kind of a page up saying I offer wedding planning services, but it wasn't any type of proactive marketing. And it was just kind of a note saying, if you're interested in working with me, let me know and we can chat, instead of trying to keep like lists of services and everything. Because again, I wanted to make sure that if I did take on any work, it was going to be work that was good for me. And I find that if, the type of people that I really love to work with are the ones that reach out not just for price, but they actually want to talk about, really collaborating and working together. And so I did keep a services page up on my website, but I didn't really include any type of details on there. But I did blog every once in a while on my lifestyle blog, which is under Joelle Charming.
Okay. I like that. So you started as a lifestyle blogger as well. So you kept up that content, because it's very related, being a designer
Absolutely.
And a stylist, and it's very related to the wedding industry.
Absolutely. And I really found that a couple of the projects I did during that time were wedding related, but not actual weddings. So I worked with Beholden on a styled shoot. I did things like that versus just planning weddings. So I did have a few projects, but there weren't any like major clients or anything.
So you kept your foot in the industry during that time.
Yeah. And I kept in touch with some people that I really loved working with, especially photographers. I'm needing family photos every year. So it was nice to just kind of keep in touch, but I wasn't completely immersed in the industry anymore.
Did you feel like now that you're back and, having that 3-year kind of, I'll call it a hiatus. I know it wasn't totally, but do you feel like that felt just so healthy and freeing for you?
It absolutely did. And it really gave me a lot of clarity, because I feel like if I had continued working throughout that process, I would have gotten even more burnt out and maybe started to resent doing weddings and probably would have quit completely. This way, I've really gained a lot of clarity and was able to be, say, very, very deliberately that I want to be a wedding planner. And so at this phase, I'm coming in with a different perspective. It's not my job because this is how I make money. It's my job because it's actually what I want to do. And I've come to that realization in the past few years.
Oh, that's important. That's so big. And you gave yourself space to figure that out.
Absolutely, because I tried a few different things. I was a calligrapher for a long time. I did, hand lettering, and I just didn't really like it. And so I tried a few different things. I had an Etsy shop, and I just kept coming back to weddings because it's what I know. Mm-hmm. I love working with people. In the past couple years, a lot has changed, and we can kind of talk about that later. But everybody's talking about passive income right now. That's like the thing, and I'm totally okay with that. My husband has a lot of passive income, but I like working with people. I like that, intimate relationship that I get with working with clients. And so it's just, I love that I can choose the weddings that I want to take on, choose the people that I work with, and have that relationship versus just trying to build my business up as big as it goes. That's not what I'm interested in anymore. And before I was. And so now I have more clarity about kind of how big I want to get, the direction I want to go, things like that.
Okay. So let's dive into now you coming back this year in 2019. Tell me about how you did that. Like, let's start at the ground floor. You gained clarity over the last 3 years and now you're in it. How did you decide, or when you decided to come back, what were some of the tactical steps that you took to, resurrect your planning company?
Yeah. So last year I didn't rebrand. I was always Joelle Charming, but I kind of relaunched.
Okay.
I was interested in doing more lifestyle stuff. I'd really kind of petered out on that and hadn't really focused on my blog in a long time. And I missed it. I missed creating beautiful things. And so last June, I decided to just redo my website, and really go from there. And I realized very quickly that everything has changed. Everything has changed. And having a lifestyle blog is not nearly as satisfying as it was 5 years ago. And so I've kind of readjusted how that worked, but that brought me back into this creative industry and kind of opened my eyes to where the creative, jobs and everything and technology where it is right now, which was really helpful. And so come January, I had been sharing, more personal stuff. I'd thrown a few parties on my own. And so come January, I basically, added a page to my website that was very detailed about weddings. And I made it very specific on my website that I am a wedding planner once again, and really amped up my SEO so that I could be searchable again. Because one thing that I do regret is that I didn't continue with the momentum that I was building. And so things have kind of gotten a little bit stagnant.
Yeah.
With being searchable and everything. So I really tried to get all of that going again, just so that I look relevant. My Yelp page had closed. I had, you were searching Joelle Charming on Google, and old blog posts and things were popping up. And so my main priority was really to just make it very obvious that I was back up and running. I put on my front homepage saying, wedding planner in Santa Barbara and Ojai. And I announced and I said, I'm taking weddings again. Once I did that, all the planners that I'd worked with in the past, I got so many referrals from them because they're like, oh my gosh, we're so thankful you're back in the business. There's a ton of new people out there, but, we're just so excited for you. And so the reception I got from my previous network was incredible. I got tons of referrals because people were like, we're just so excited that you're back. Here, you have this work that I can't take on. So that was really awesome. One of the first client, inquiries I got too was someone that was like, I've been following you for 5 years and I just happened to get engaged in December. And I knew 5 years ago that I wanted you to be my wedding planner.
Oh, wow.
And so when I announced, she got in touch and she's like, I'm just so thankful that you got back into it. She's like, I knew 5 years ago, that I wanted you. And so I got a lot of those people that maybe 5 years ago, they were following me for lifestyle stuff and now they're engaged. And so I actually got quite a few of those people. There's been a few new venues, which is really awesome. And so I've been able to kind of network with those new venues as well, because we all know how important it is to network with venues. So I was able to do things more slowly, but it built up a lot faster than I anticipated it to, because I think that people just realized so quickly that I was back, and it was really great, the reception I got. It was really awesome to be able to walk into my former, the rental company that I'd used for years now, and then just say, introducing me to the new staff and saying, oh my gosh, this is Joelle. We haven't seen her in years. We're so thankful she's back. So that really, that's kind of how I got back in. But things have changed more than I anticipated. And that has probably been my my biggest struggle, is just with the way that the industry has changed since then.
So tell us about that. Tell us about the changes.
It was interesting to me. I had done photo shoots back in 2012, I think was my very first one, when blogs had just started becoming popular, but there wasn't you only a few people did them. And, if you wanted to do a photo shoot, you had to do something that nobody had seen before. And so when I got here to see how popular photo shoots have become and how saturated wedding publications have become, marketing for me it's changed so much, because before it was like you get published on Style Me Pretty and it was a huge deal. And these days, it's so much work to get your work published, and the return isn't as much as it used to be. Right. Just because I think that everything is we're all so bombarded with images that people take from real weddings, but also from styled shoots. And sometimes I get afraid that there's nothing new anymore, because a lot of stuff looks the same. And so I've really been trying to think outside the box and try to look at it from the perspective that maybe this is a good thing, that I am looking at things with fresh eyes, and maybe I can bring something new instead of just everything that's being done constantly. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. How have you seen yourself thinking outside of the box, what are you doing in your business that you feel like is differentiating you from the saturation in the industry right now?
Yeah, I think that I'm trying, obviously I'm resting on my portfolio and my experience, but I recognize that it's also kind of out of date. And so I am trying to create new, things that are new photos and everything. And so that's been interesting. But I think that my approach to, I just want to work with people is probably setting me apart right now.
Mm-hmm.
I see so many, and I don't think, to each their own. I think that everybody has something that works for them. And I think that's great. But for me, I'm not trying to take on every single wedding I can get. And I want to work with clients that they're getting married for the right reasons. I feel like that could be a controversial statement, but they're not just having a wedding to have this like insane celebration with, stuff everywhere. And they want something a little bit more intimate, and they want to have a relationship with that person that's going to be bringing it to life. I'm not doing any huge installations or productions anymore. I like focusing on the smaller things. And it's been really rewarding to be able to work on those events that I can have that really close relationship with my clients. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you feel like you would have felt this way had you not taken that 3-year break? Or is this part of the clarity you think came, is like this types of events you wanted to take part in?
I definitely think it came with the clarity, because I was on a trajectory that wasn't necessarily making me happy at that point.
Yeah.
I was taking these weddings that just weren't my style, which is fine. I can design a wedding outside of my box, but the values that went into these weddings didn't line up with my values. And I didn't see a way that I could stop it because, again, of the momentum, but also I was needing to take a certain number of weddings, and it kind of built, I was able to build a reputation on something that wasn't necessarily matching with what I actually wanted.
Do you think that having a little bit more flexibility, especially, you mentioned earlier in our chat that you were supporting your husband while he was going through school, but then in 2014 you had a little bit more flexibility there, which is just 2 years before you took your break. Do you feel like having, a few more options is maybe what like brought you to the decision to like take the break? Like, had you not had those options become available, I just wonder, we can't know for sure, but I wonder if you would have stayed on that momentous trajectory,
One thing I didn't mention, and this is probably important, is that when in 2014, my husband stopped school he went to UC Santa Barbara, and we moved basically out of the area to San Diego, which is about 3 to 4 hours away from where my market was. And that was just for a year so that he could do his internship. And so I was basically coming back constantly. I was driving up a lot for weddings, and it was kind of burning me out too. And so part of me was like, maybe I should start taking weddings in San Diego. And so it kind of naturally started to trickle out, because I was saying, you know what, this wedding isn't worth it for me to make this trip and spend this money trying to find a place to stay and everything. And so that was kind of a natural break, but I still had a full wedding season. I just wasn't sure where we were going to be after that. And so I was still taking on weddings, but I was being a little bit more particular, probably around 2015, about the type of weddings that I was taking.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, now that you are, we're all, as we record this, it's August 2019. You're wrapping up. Is it, 2019 is like your first full year back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't, I've only had a handful, and I'm happy that I didn't want to book out for 2019, because I'm like, I'm a little rusty. Like, let me get my toes wet again.
Totally.
I'm like, okay, I guess I have to pay my dues a little bit more. It's been kind of interesting. It's like, okay, well, I guess I have to do what I need to do in order to get back into it. But I'm glad that I didn't take on as many weddings as I probably could have, for sure.
Oh, totally. That really makes a lot of sense, because, as you mentioned, a lot has changed. I mean, gosh, like, even Instagram stories when you took your break in 2016, that just started in August. It wasn't a thing. So that's really impressive. And I love that you were so mindful of the amount of events this year that you wanted to take on. How has it been being a mom of two and doing events now this year? What has that really been like for you?
It has been really interesting. And I love working. I've always known, I tried to stay home and just, be a stay-at-home mom with my kids. And it didn't bring me joy. I love working. I love collaborating with other creatives. And so I am really thankful that we're able to send our kids to an amazing school, Montessori. It just started yesterday. And I have the peace of mind to know that they're being taken care of. That wasn't an easy decision. But I love being able to just go home and really get stuff that fulfills me done. It can be hard being away from them on event weekends, which again is a reason why I didn't book a ton of events, because, I'm gone for 8 hours and I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss my kids. And my husband points out and he goes, that's how long people that work like a regular 9 to 5 are gone every single day. And so I have to be really cognizant and thankful that I am able to work with I can create a schedule that works for all of us. I think it's important for my kids to see me working and doing something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And doing something that fulfills me is just it's so important to me that my kids see me creating and doing work that brings me joy and fulfillment. That's so much more important to me than them seeing me upset and frustrated constantly because I'm forced to be home with them all the time. So
I could not agree with that more. I feel like I'm also a mom of two, and I feel like we have similar thoughts around what brings us joy within motherhood, which is
absolutely,
we like to be doing things outside of our children and our spouses and all of that. And so I could not agree with that more. Now, how are you feeling like mentally? What's your mental load like right now this year with, still be your mom of two, you're a wife, your husband sounds like he's super busy as well. How are you kind of not quote balancing, but how are you making all of these things work logistically? I know the kiddos are going to Montessori probably during the week. What do you do on wedding weekends?
My husband actually has a really flexible schedule too.
Cool.
He is a psychologist and he has an office about a half hour away from where we live. And so he only goes into the office maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And otherwise we have an office that we share right around the corner from our house. And so we are very, consistent with our schedule. It's, I have the boys Monday, Wednesday afternoons. He has them, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons. He has them Tuesday, Friday afternoons. And then he has them on the weekends and if I'm gone. And so we're just constant communication about what we need for our careers and our personal fulfillment, is kind of is what we do. We're constantly talking and setting, we're Google Calendar type family. So everything goes in the calendar so that we can always be on the same page. And that way I know that, my kids are being taken care of.
Yeah.
And I can really let that part go. And so that I can really throw myself more into my work.
And just be 100% there when you're there.
Yeah. And that way I don't have to worry, that maybe, Robert is taking on too much this week because it's something that we've agreed upon and we've, made it very clear as to, the expectations and the, time management and everything. So.
Do you feel like, how are you with coming back this year? Was it the right choice? Are you happy to be back?
Yes, I have. It's been rough just because I feel like I'm not moving as fast as I want to.
In what way?
Just, I know that it's not booking season. I'm like, I'm ready to work. People hire me. Like, I'm ready, and it's just, I have to have patience and I have to recognize that things they'll happen when they happen. But I think my biggest fear right now is just that everything's been done and I'm trying to enter back into a market that there's no room for me because, everything has changed and there's just new people out there that are, that are so talented and amazing. And I want to, I want to network and be, a part of that community. There are times when I feel a little bit shut out because I haven't been around in a while. And, there are a lot of people that I used to work with aren't working anymore. And so trying to insert myself back into the community has probably been one of my biggest hurdles and frustrations. I obviously have people that I've been working with for years and they're super excited and the welcome I got was amazing. But there are some people that, they don't really have time for a new wedding planner. I'm using air quotes.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So just trying to build my expertise back up, and it's humbling to say the least. It's very, very humbling. And I'm thankful for this journey because I know that it's going to make me stronger in the long run because I've had to go through it twice. But it doesn't make it easy.
It doesn't. Not at all. And I really feel like the community piece, I was just having another interview a little earlier today, and we were really talking about how important it is to have community in our industry and to be able to just have relationship with other people, with other women in our industry and to rely on each other and to lean on each other. And it can be hard if you don't have that. I know for me, I mean, it's not the same, but I live in an area that's, we're near Aspen, Colorado. So we get a lot of tourist traffic, but where I live specifically is on a private ranch, we're not like a plethora of networking where I specifically live. And so, I feel a little bit, not on the outside, but it can be hard to, always be with people and meet the right people and also just, sit down and have a good 30-minute conversation over coffee and feel like you're connected.
Absolutely. And another thing is I just had more time before kids too.
Totally.
I was going to every networking event I was invited to. I was going out to coffee or lunch with, a colleague, multiple times a week. And I just don't have time for that anymore. And it's like, wow. Before I remember maybe back in 2013, I was giving a presentation at an ABC, Association of Bridal Consultants, meeting about getting published. Because I was writing for Huffington Post Weddings at the time. And one of the event planners in the room was like, "You don't have kids, do you?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And she's like, "Yeah, because you have a lot of time to do this kind of stuff." And now I'm like, "Oh, I get it. I get it." Me just giving advice that's to all this networking and writing, becoming an expert. It's tough when you have more time restrictions for sure. So I definitely can't just be around and be immersed in the industry as much as I was for sure.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Same. I mean, I've started the industry always having kids, but I can imagine also that's really ballsy of that lady to be like,
she's awesome and I love her and she's actually
she's not wrong.
But I was like, no, I don't.
Right, I don't.
It's just funny, but it's something that I've always remembered because, at the time I was like, excuses. And now I'm like, oh no, kids really do change things. So I've definitely gotten some perspective and, had to shift my priorities and techniques and stuff for sure.
I hear you, sister. That's so true. Kids do change everything.
Oh, they really do. But they're great. I love my kids so much. And it's really fun. I love when my husband has, even when they're sad because I have to leave, hearing my husband say, "Mommy has to go to work," it feels validating. It feels validating in a lot of ways. And so it makes me emotional. I'm like, I'm actually working, and I'm working and my husband sees value in it. And my kids are seeing that I'm doing something that brings me a lot of joy and fulfillment. So yeah, that's really important to me.
I have a quick question. We didn't really explore this a lot, but I want to, especially since you were talking about the validation piece just now, I wonder when you had first, went on your break and had your first baby, Remy, right? Is that okay?
Yeah.
You had Remy. I love that name. Did you kind of lose yourself for a little while in motherhood? Did it take you some time to say, gosh, I need to, kind of rediscover what it means to be just Joelle and do something I'm passionate about as outside of motherhood? Because of course we're passionate about that. Or were you just like, no, this is great. I need a job?
Oh, no, I love my boys more than anything, but I mean, I was doing some creative projects, and I knew that I needed to stick with creative projects, whether or not it was weddings. But I realized very, very early on that I was not fulfilled just being a mother. And I don't think that's something that, we talk about enough.
Right.
Because it's kind of taboo, it's really taboo. You're constantly bombarded with memes and things on social media that's like, enjoy this time, it's not going to last. And I'm like, I'm enjoying it as much as I can. Because having kids is hard, and it's not going to be all fun and, butterflies and rainbows all the time. And I was like, I needed something to balance it out. And it took me a couple years I was exploring different avenues during that time. And I'm thankful that I was, because it brought me, gave me clarity and showed me what my talents and passions are and all that kind of stuff. So I really am thankful for those few years.
I feel like it is hard to have, some of the reason it's hard to have these conversations is because it's sensitive to both sides, of course, because we all experience some kind of guilt, but also I feel like sometimes just semantics get in the way of having a productive conversation around motherhood and working motherhood, or because all motherhood is working. We are all working. I don't care what you're doing, but there's times I find myself saying, oh, I couldn't just be a stay-at-home mom, and just saying that, like, just a stay-at-home mom really hammers people. And I just mean it, just like that verbiage will hammer people, and they'll, just get crazy about it. And I'm like, I don't mean that's all you are. Those are just the words I used.
Oh, are you kidding? I'm like, I need help in my house. And
Same.
So I recognize, like, I accept and need help in my house, and watching my kids, other people watch my kids. I can't get anything done when I have my kids with me. It's motherhood is the hardest job I have ever had.
Yes.
Easily. The, biggest bridezilla in the world does not compare to my 3-year-old's tantrums.
That's right.
So, I try, you're right. I need to watch my language more, because it's not just stay at home mom. I mean, it's a full career. It's a full job and career that I can't do, just like I can't be an athlete. I'm not a doctor. I can't be a stay-at-home mom for similar reasons. I don't have the talent for it, the talent or passion. So.
As we wrap up here, this has been so eye-opening. I appreciate you being so candid on this conversation about, business and what it was like in the beginning, what it's like now, and just how you've changed and grown and what you're doing in your business. What are some, if you would just share maybe 1 or 2 tips for maybe the mom who is getting ready to go on a maternity leave and she doesn't know what kind of break she's going to have, or, we never know. We don't know what's going to happen. What are 1 or 2 or 3, however many you have, kind of tips you could offer to people out there? Don't even have to be moms, but they might need an extended break. Maybe this is sounding good, or it's something that they have to do. What is your advice to us?
One of the things I probably regret the most is just not building my social media presence consistently during that time. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into weddings, but I didn't spend a lot of time working on things like Instagram. And it is hard to, at this point, I did have an Instagram in the early days, but it wasn't the same type of marketing tool that it is now. And so I just didn't keep up with Instagram trends and Pinterest trends and, just social media trends. And so I would say to keep the momentum going, even if you're sharing, if you have a portfolio, you have content you can share, even if you're not taking on weddings right now. But, just be visible so that people know that you're still around, so that you can continue to build a following and things like that. That's probably my biggest piece of advice, and is just, and definitely keep up with technology and the trends, so that if you do decide to come back, you're not completely taken by surprise, because technology changes so quickly these days. And it can be a really hard learning curve if it's something that you're not really used to. So that's probably my number 1 piece of advice. And then use the time to explore new styles, new passions, because you very well may realize that there's something else out there that brings you more joy and fulfillment than, something that you did before you had kids, because everything's going to change. You change as people. We all change as people constantly. And so to consider it an opportunity to really discover, or narrow down what it is you want to do after you come back, continuing to build your skills, continuing to keep up with trends, just so that, again, when you do decide to come back, you're not surprised. There's no surprises there. And then also just have patience, because these things take time. It took time to build it from the beginning, and it's going to take time when you come back. It's going to take time too, and I'm trying to take my own advice, and that's not always easy. But that's probably just keep up with everything, even if you're not directly participating. Just keeping up with technology and trends, and trying to keep the momentum going, even if you're not booking clients.
That's so wise, Joelle. Thank you so much for today. It has been such a pleasure to chat with you and hear your story. Where can everyone find you?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. My name is Joelle Duff, and my company is Joelle Charming. So I am Joelle Charming across everything on Instagram, Facebook, all of that fun stuff. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put links to everything Joelle in the show notes, you guys, if you need it.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes, you are welcome. Thank you, Joelle. It has truly been my pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.